Hi, everybody. I'm back and I'm ready to talk about the day. So, I had the day off, and it all started when I woke up at around like 11 or 11:30, somewhere around there. Um, I remember feeling kind of annoyed how I basically slept through the whole morning that today, and how I felt like I kind of missed out on like having a large chunk of time that I could use to dedicate towards like doing something cool or creative, or maybe even just good for my body, like stretching or exercise. Instead, I was like, oh well, it's super late in the morning, what am I gonna do? I don't know. So when I got up out of bed, I remember I went out of my room, and I um, hmm, I greeted my sister, and what happened after that? Um, I'm pretty sure I went back into my room, and I decided to hold on. Let me make sure I'm in the timeline right. Library, history. Did I check something out? Um, Man, trying to understand what went on. Okay, so back rooms. Definitely remember hearing that late at night. Government has never met a person that they liked, and it was basically a guy called Samuel Jacobs making a satirical video on how like America's always been like, you know, for the people in charge and not for the people by the people. That it was a pretty funny video. Um, Bro's finally not judging by appearance. It was like a little animated thing on YouTube Shorts. Then there was Two Greatest Detectives, a funny little animation where you had Thelma saying, "We can solve this, Batman," and then Batman just punches people. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. I think from what I can remember, my mom arrived. I greeted her, and what happened after that? Um, oh, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go pick up my car at the auto shop." She was like, "All right." I have the rest. I asked her, "Do you have the rest of the day off?" She's like, "Yeah, I do." I was like, "Ooh, do you mind coming with me to pick up my car?" She's like, "No, not at all. Let's do it." So, but before we went out, I decided to call my mechanic to see what was going on. They said that the starter's working, but uh, the fuel gauge isn't running, and you're gonna have to go to another person for that job, and they charge a lot of money to fix that. So that's what we gotta tell you. I didn't think much of it before, but we'll get into that a little later. Like, oh, okay, well, and then it caused me, my sister, and my mom to discuss how we're gonna keep track of when to fill my gas tank. And we're like, oh well, we just need to keep an eye on the mileage, and if it goes above this amount, then we have to go to the gas tank to refill the car. And we're like, all right. And then after that, my mom and my sister were working on the construction job until eventually it was time to go. So me and my mom decided to go on foot to eventually get to the mechanic until we did, because I promised we'd drive over to a gas station to refill the tank. And yeah, they when we went in there, the auto shop manager um, described the situation about how he said, "I have a gift for you, Noah. and he went out and he got this box that had a knob thing that you press and you move. It's the thing that you use to change between drive and park and stuff like that. And he said, yeah, and we got an estimate for how much that would cost if you were to ever come back and put it in. I was like, oh, okay, thanks. And they said, here's the amount you owe for the services done. I was like, all right. So I fill out the check. I gave it to him, and then me and my mom got in the car. Then we noticed something that really should have gave us pause and had us stop at their before leaving to tell them, hey, well, we don't really agree with this, but instead we decided to go to refill the tank because when we started the car, the fuel gauge wouldn't go up like how it used to. And by the way, before I sent the car in for repair, it was going up perfectly fine. So the fact that it wasn't going up after sending it for repair of the fuel pump tells me that my mechanic did not, they somehow caused the issue to happen, which after you drop $405 on, repair, you expect the whole thing to work at the end. You shouldn't expect, oh, this is messed up, and now now this is what I have to deal with. That doesn't make any sense. But my mom suggested, well, maybe it's because the fuel isn't filled and we just need to fill it all the way. So we went to a gas station, we filled it all the way until we couldn't put any more oil into it anymore. We popped that lid in, we started the car, and it still wouldn't work. The gauge, which we were told didn't work by the mechanic, but we just wanted to confirm it ourselves. And no, it didn't work. And then on top of that, the check engine light was on. And if the check engine light is on, that means that next time I need to give my car a smog check, I cannot, because not being able to give my car a smog check means I can't register my vehicle to drive, which means that I wouldn't be able to drive legally on the road. So that was a really serious issue that sent alarm bells on both me and my mom's head, and we're like, okay, time to bring this back. We need to ask them very much, the fuel gauge was working, it's not working anymore, and now the check engine light's on when it wasn't before. We need you to fix this because we brought it in for you to fix, and the fact you were going to lay these problems out on us without having addressed them is not okay. So we sent the vehicle back. We told them our worries and concerns, and then they brought it in. They said, leave it here. So I'm hoping that next time I'm updated on my vehicle, those problems are fixed, because that's my money and that's my vehicle, and I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect car mechanics to deliver a acceptable result. Otherwise, it makes me not trust the business. It makes me feel uncomfortable recommending the business to other people. So it ultimately hurts their business, and it ultimately hurts my car. So everyone's not having a great time, and we don't want that. So I'm hoping that they resolve the issue. So yeah. I still don't have my car. I had it for a brief moment in the afternoon when we went to pick it up, but then we saw these serious issues and we were like, no, we can't have this. This is serious. This is bad. So we had to send it back. And we did some research. We found that if things in the car were working before and they're not working anymore, then the mechanics are entirely liable to those issues and that they need to fix them. Otherwise, they could get in some hot trouble, which I don't want. I don't want to go through that because I mean, it's just something like you know because well, I guess the main reason is because I've sent my vehicle to them before and I've had no issues before. Like before, the car worked as it should and took it away and it was great. But this time it didn't work, and so you know that's not good. And I think I'm no, I know I'm perfectly within my right to expect a good job done, not a half baked job done. And I know that might sound a little like, oh, you're not grateful that the car's running. Well, I am grateful that the car's running, but I um I don't think it's appropriate to give a car where now one component that used to work fine doesn't work anymore and expect you to just be okay with that. That's something that's why I say that. It's like I want everything to work well and not have to worry about any issues like not passing a smog check or not knowing how much gas I have in my tank in the future. So yeah. So yeah, that's ultimately the conclusion that has happened with the car so far. Hopefully, we have some positive updates in the future. And if I don't get any positive updates, I will have to write a person potential customer beware review on their service because like I've said, I've brought my car into their service many times before, and they have fixed the vehicle and they did a good job. But the fact that this happened where they messed something up, but they almost gave my car back and just expect me to be okay with that. And at first, like I was like taking it in, I was like, well, I guess I just have to count the miles now. But then I realized, oh, well, it used to work and it doesn't, and now my check engine light is perpetually on, and the you need to fill your gas light is also perpetually on. Mm-mm, that's not good. That's not good. And I made that executive decision to bring it back. So let's hope things are put on the straight and narrow. All right. Well, moving along. After that whole issue happened, yeah, we returned. I asked my family friend if it'd be all right if they could take me to this burger restaurant so I could get some to-go fast food. So they took me. I was very grateful. I thanked them. I got a double cheeseburger with fries and a beverage. I returned back home with the meal, and I ended up watching a Red Letter Media video about the new He-Man movie, Masters of the Universe, that just recently released. And the interesting thing about that film was that the guys who reviewed it, Mike and Jay, said that they genuinely enjoyed the movie. They thought it was actually really entertaining. They thought it was really well done and had a lot of good things about it. But they said that the problem with the film is that it's like too little, too late because like you know He-Man was like a big property back in like the early 80s, but then they waited a little too long to do a movie that they released in the early 90s, and by then kids had moved on and enjoyed stuff like Ninja Turtles. But then they tried to bring the franchise back into relevance in the early 2000s with like a new animated series and toy line that ended up not really doing anything. And then afterwards, they tried to bring it back with a Netflix Kevin Smith show that also ultimately floundered because it ended up ignoring what people liked about He-Man, which was that, oh, He-Man's the main character, but no, they had to kill him and replace him with female characters instead. And then after that, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. It's just clearly it was the statement at the time of like, it was around the time the Me Too movement was happening. So I think creators felt inclined to make their stories appeal to, be more appealing to an audience that felt like they were being minimal minimized by making them the stars, and that's a completely noble goal that I appreciate. The thing is, though, that like people like a property when it's the way it is, and when you try to make it something it's not, and say, well, it's a political statement, it it's no longer about just telling a good story that you with characters you care about. It's about making a statement with an IP that just feels like a vain attempt at a rallying cry for what's essentially a comic book product at the forefront. And while that could be seen as noble by some, ultimately, it's not going to stand the test of time. It's going to be seen as a cultural artifact, and it's ultimately just going to take away from what people enjoy about the thing they enjoyed to begin with, instead of adding to it. So yeah, but anywho, moving along from that. Then now we have this movie in the mid 2020s, and they say too little too late, because like the people who grew up with He-Man in the early 80s, who would have been kids back then, are probably like in their 50s now, or late 40s, early 50s. And making something that appeals to what is essentially a very small subset of an audience group is such a bizarre choice for a big major budget studio film to do. I think they thought, well, if we make it like something that's universally appealing that a lot of people can like, then surely it has some franchise legs. But the problem is that He-Man really only appealed to like the people who grew up with it, and then that was it. And the only people who would care about a new He-Man property would be that small group of people would be like, I know what that is. Now, maybe if they released the movie 15 to 20 years in the past, like 2006 to 2010, when the people who are like in their 50s now would have been in their 30s and probably had their own kids by then, that would have been perfect. And even Mike and Jade say this in the video, because those people would have been like still nostalgic for that franchise, but they also would have had kids who would have been young enough for them to introduce that franchise to them, so that way that could keep the the enjoyment of the franchise going. George Lucas understood this with Star Wars. It's that if you want to keep a brand like engaging for generation upon generation, you have to make each generation's version of that thing to keep it relevant in the social environment, social loop. But if you create a franchise that really only had niche appeal to a group of people at a certain point in time, and then you really only try to appeal to those people as the years goes on, and you kind of ignore the fact that you need to find some way to make it broadly appealing to everyone in a way, then you only really can outreach to those people who grew up with it. And then your audience becomes smaller and smaller, because as time goes on, those people get older, and then they like you really got to strike at that perfect time when like they're old enough to have kids and want to show their kids what they grew up with, but you know young enough to so the kids could be influenced by what they saw, and they could have a good memory as a family watching this thing on the big screen. They didn't strike when the iron was hot at that point in time, and they decided to wait too long. And by the time they did, the people who would have been introduced to that franchise when they were growing up with their dads who grew up with the franchise are too old to care about it anymore. And like, yeah, that's something my dad liked, and sometimes he gave me toys that he liked, but that was about it. Yeah, so clearly, it would be like if they made a Bionicle theatrical movie, um, 40 years after Bionicle was introduced. Um, I feel like the time to make like a Bionicle like movie or a reboot or something Bionicle related would be either now, between now to 5 years in the future, because like with He-Man, people my age who grew up with that stuff probably are starting to have their own kids right now. Like I don't have any kids, but people within my age group are probably like did start to have their own kids. So if like Lego could make a Bionicle movie for them to introduce, like this is what I grew up with, and like they show them that, then it could keep that flame going, maybe, because there's that positive family memory relation thing going. But if they just continue to wait out until I'm in my 50s or my 60s, I guess, what do we got? What franchise do people be like, I know what that is? Oh, Bionicle, let's do that. And the only people who remember are like people who grew up with it, like me, between 2001 to 2010, and then you're like, try to bring it back now, and the year 2060, no one's gonna watch that. Nobody, other than maybe me, where I'm like, oh, I vaguely remember what that was. Oh, yes, it was cool. Oh, I'm gonna die now. Yeah, you don't want that. So weird that they waited so long. Okay, I'm kind of rambling, aren't I? Moving along. But yeah, they said they liked it. They enjoyed it. They said it was very Marvel-like, but did have, you know, a heart, did have appreciation for the source material. So that was cool to see. So yeah, after watching that and laughing at the comments, because people write silly comments on RLM videos that are hilarious. Like someone saying it was the video was just an excuse for Mike to show his He-Man toy collection, and for Jay to pretend like he wasn't enthused or excited by He-Man toys when in reality he was. Yeah, stuff like that was funny. And then someone saying, "Ooh, Rich Evans had to be de-aged to play Mr. Plinkett again." So, yeah. And then, oh man, this video must have been expensive. They must have spent $100 on the Hardee's meal alone. So, yeah, very funny indeed. All right. Well, after that, I watched a video from Digital Foundry about this the Xbox online event that happened. And oh boy, this is a whole can of worms. I could easily go on to this for like hours. But I'm gonna try to keep this brief. Yeah, Gears of War E-Day looked pretty good. Pretty impressed with that. The fact that we were able to get a hardware-based Lumen running so efficiently at 60 frames per second on an Xbox Series X from 2020 is incredible. Coalition are masters of coding and optimization, so round of applause for them. There was like another game that I'm forgetting what was, like the last Clockwinders or something like that. I forget exactly what it was called. That looked kind of cool, I guess. There's a new Spyro game being worked on. Hey, if Crash Bandicoot's dead, the least we can get is a new Spyro game, right? So, yay. Like, I think the last Crash Bandicoot was Crash 4 from like 2021, right? Or 20. No, it came out in like 2019, and then they made like a PS5 and Xbox One version in 2020 or 21, and that's the last we've. Oh yeah, and then they did that Crash Wampa Fruit video game that was like horribly anemic and wasn't like fully fleshed out. So they did that too, I guess. So nice. Yeah. But after that was like 2023, right? I think that was the last one. And yeah, and people assign Crash and Spyro together because they were like the platforming mascots of the PlayStation 90s era. And then they kind of just they still coexisted for a while throughout the mid 2000s and started to have identity crises. And Crash ended up going in a hiatus after 2007, and Spyro ended up just becoming a side character of his own games with the Skylanders series, until eventually, like the Skylanders toy model started to lose its appeal, and they stopped making those. And Crash was eventually brought back with the Insane trilogy for the PlayStation 4, which it was later ported to other platforms as well. And then Spyro was brought back with the original Spyro trilogy. So it's cool to see Toys for Bob is being given the opportunity to bring this franchise back. And it looks like it's going to be very similar to like or Spyro games from like the early 2000s with like, more of an open world design, and like, there was like rings and stuff. It wasn't enough like information to really understand what they're going for, but enough to give you an idea of like, well, okay, maybe they're trying to keep the original DNA alive in Spyro. So I guess that's cool. But yeah, that was exciting. Crazy Taxi, that's cool. Crazy Taxi is a pretty cool franchise. That's staying alive. Yeah, I guess the one last thing I'm going to say, because that's about all like Steam I've got, is that it's weird how apparently Gears of War E-Day and the other one that I'm forgetting the name of, the Last Clockwinders, maybe something like that. Those are going to be Xbox Series console exclusives, which is very weird considering that Microsoft has decided to release a lot of their first party exclusives as multi-platform games. Like the new Halo Combat Evolved's Unreal Engine 5 remake is being released on PlayStation 5. Forza is also going to be released on PS5. But Gears of War E-Day and The Last Clockwinders are going to be console exclusives. That's interesting. That is interesting. I think it might be Microsoft's last ditch effort attempt to keep the Xbox like brand synergy relevant or alive, even though they pretty much have given a lot of their bigger heavy hitting titles to other platforms. So I don't know. I don't know what their strategy is. I don't think they know what their strategy is. I just think Microsoft's kind of in like the Xbox division at least is in like a free fall where it doesn't really know what it wants to do or where it wants to go, and it's kind of like if it weren't for the fact that the Xbox was being funded by Microsoft, which pretty much has endless money, then Microsoft's Xbox would have gone the ways of the Sega Dreamcast many years ago. Like they would have already like just said, we're not going to make a new hardware anymore. But apparently they are, but it's going to be a PC console hybrid, which to me, especially hearing that the PlayStation 6 will be a traditional console, kind of is just a sign of like, well, tried, but people are just gonna game on their PCs, so we're just gonna make a console PC hybrid or something. I don't know. Wasn't the whole appeal of the console to make it like accessible to people in the living room? I mean, sure. I mean, I guess like it's kind of an interesting situation here, but I feel like people who would have played on a PC would have just built a PC and then loaded an OS on it for their living room anyways, like Steam OS. And I don't know, people who just wanted to continue playing like their games in as simple and direct of a way as possible would just get a home console, If you care about, full ownership of your games, no DRM, and not having to worry about like publicly traded companies messing with your software, then Steam's the way to go. PC, Steam, perfect as always. Just stick with that because they're a privately owned company. They only answer to their customers and not to their investors. So their key goal is to give the absolute greatest and best possible customer support ever. Gabe Newell managed to just be extremely lucky and hit it big by creating a storefront service that actually offers gamers what they want and does it in a way that respects their audience instead of berates or minimizes them or gives them less power. Like it's a good thing he has going. And the day that Gabe Newell leaves the Steam or Valve, and then someone else is put in charge who doesn't have views that align with what Gabe Newell has, and they decide, you know what, I'm going to sell this to a publicly traded company. Is a day that Steam's going to die, and people are going to look back on the days we're living in right now as like, wow, I miss the days when like Steam was great. Yeah, let's hope that doesn't happen. Let's hope that eventually, when Gabe Newell does retire or leave, that he leaves the Steam and Valve in good hands. So people don't have to worry about Valve becoming a publicly traded company and compromising its moral and concerns for its customers, and instead rather concerns itself to appease to investors. Like, let's hope that doesn't happen. Whew, man, I'm a talkative one when it comes to stuff like games and cars and stuff, aren't I? Well, anyways, moving along. Yeah, so yeah, after that whole discussion and my thoughts about it, I decided to go around a walk around the neighborhood. I was talking with Ash, the AI chatbot, trying to figure out like, how's my mind work? What do I like? What I don't like? I like having an objective, but I don't like being severely dictated to, and I like having a broad understanding of what I want, but I want to have enough leeway to understand how to get to the solution on that problem instead of being just told, do this, do this, do this. So I guess that's something I've learned. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I returned home. Yeah, and then hung out with my family. Me and my sister watched some videos of like time soldiers and mantis beings. That was pretty cool, pretty fun. I chose the mantis beings. My sister chose the Project Montauk time soldiers. That was pretty fun. We had a fun discussion with that, and I tried to do like a meditation where I was like trying to let go of my physical body and go more of like a floaty sort of like deep meditation state. But right when I was getting into it, my sister wanted me to have a conversation. So yeah, I had that, and then I had a conversation with my mom, and then after that, I decided to get a Sprite, get some popcorn. It was really good popcorn that our family friend gave me. It was like a street corn flavored popcorn, and it was really good. Like, I really enjoyed it. That was like the best snack I've had in a while. Not gonna lie, really good. And I watched a Red Letter Media video where it was Mike J and this comic book writer guy, I'm forgetting the name of right now, an artist, and they were all discussing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie, and it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was very funny what they were talking about, like especially with like the comic book guy meeting one of the creators of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and asking him how Shredder came back, and he was like saying, well, worms and how you cut them and like they can still have consciousness. Well, the space worms came in and they imitated the Shredder, and that's how the Shredder came back. It was pretty funny. Yeah, after that, I decided to take my vitamins, take out the trash because tonight's trash night, brush my teeth, say goodnight to my sister, and then record this video. So that's pretty much it. That was a pretty long discussion of many things, but ultimately, I'm glad that I was able to get this video out there, and I will be seeing you all the next one. So take care, and have a great night, guys. Bye. See ya.